It's hard to open your eyes some days. The news feels heavier, the noise feels louder. And even when your own life is okay, the world outside your door can feel like it's breaking. Slowly, publicly, endlessly. You scroll through suffering, you hear another story of loss. Another person is fighting for breath, for belonging, for justice. And you start to wonder, what's left for you to give? Because you've already been trying, haven't you? Trying to care, trying to do the right thing, trying not to go numb. But here's the truth most people won't say out loud. You're not built to carry all of it. You're built to care deeply, but not to bear endlessly. And yet, that doesn't mean you have to shut down. It means there's another way to hold the world. When the world feels heavy, be light. Not fake light, not blind positivity, but the kind that sees everything clearly and still believe in what's worth saving. The kind that listens, that shows up, that chooses gentleness when everything feels cruel. The kind that doesn't look away, but refuses to be swallowed by the dark. And this episode isn't about pretending everything's fine. It's about remembering what light really is. Truth, compassion, courage. The quiet decisions to stay human when it would be easier not to. So if you're tired, stay. If you're heavy, breathe. If you've forgotten what light feels like, this is your reminder. Because even now, even here, the world still needs your warmth. Not as a savior and not as a shield, just a light. Real, imperfect, human. Reminding the rest of us we're not alone. Are you ready? I am. I'm Jonah. I'm your person. Let's get to it. Welcome back to the show. I'm so glad you're here. You can feel it even when you don't have the words for it. That invisible heaviness sitting behind your ribs. Some days it's personal. Your own battles, your own grief. But other days it's collective. Like your heart's picking up a signal from everywhere. From one part of our troubled world to another, to your neighbor's kitchen table. The ache travels. And even if you're not directly in the fire, you breathe the smoke. That's the strange gift and burden of being alive right now. We're more connected than ever, which means our compassion can reach across oceans. But it also means our hearts are constantly being asked to hold what they were never designed to carry all at once. We scroll, we absorb, we internalize. And before we know it, we're not just watching the pain, we're hosting it. We wake up already tired, already full of sorrow. And that sorrow doesn't even belong to us. But maybe that's where the light begins. By realizing we were never asked to fix the world alone, and we were asked to remember our part in it, to tend to our corner, to shine where we stand. Because the light doesn't mean you deny the darkness. It means you refuse to let it take your shape. So if your chest has felt heavy lately, if the weight of it all feels unrelenting, pause. Place your hand over your heart and whisper, "This is not mine to hold alone." That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Because you can't carry it all, but you can carry your light. So here's a recap for you. You were never built to shoulder the world's pain. But every time you choose compassion over collapse, you help it heal, one beam of light at a time. All right, let's talk about light isn't naive in this part too. At some point, being kind started to look weak, and being hopeful started to sound unrealistic. And being light, in a time like this, started to almost feel like being foolish. But here's what most people forget. Light doesn't come from ignorance. It comes from awareness. And the brightest souls you'll ever meet aren't blind to darkness. They've walked through it, lived in it, and maybe even lost themselves to it for a while. And somewhere in that silence, they made a choice. I will not become what broke me. That's not naivety. That's evolution. See, when you've seen enough hurt, cynicism can start to feel safe. It shields you. It hardens you. And it convinces you that hope is childish, that tenderness is a liability. But hardness doesn't heal. It just builds another wall around a heart that's already aching to be free. So what if being light isn't about staying positive, but about staying open? Open enough to see both beauty and pain. Open enough to love again after disappointment. Open enough to believe that the world, though bruised, still carries something sacred worth saving. Because the truth is, light doesn't ignore dark. It confronts it. It names it. And then it outshines it. Not by overpowering it, but by simply refusing to disappear. So maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop apologizing for being gentle. Maybe it's time to stop shrinking your kindness just to fit in with the brokenness around you. Your softness is not weakness. Your hope is not denial. Your love, still offered and still chosen, is proof that the light in you is real. So here's your first challenge. This week, notice one place where you've been holding back your light, afraid of being misunderstood, mocked, or dismissed. Then shine anyway. Not loudly, not to prove a point, but simply because the world needs to remember what light looks like when it's honest. All right, let's talk about the quiet power of presence in this part 3. Not every act of light looks like a movement. Sometimes it looks like staying when everyone else walks away. It looks like listening when the world is shouting. It looks like choosing to be here even when being here hurts. Presence is underrated. It doesn't trend. It doesn't post well. And it doesn't come with applause or validation. But presence changes everything. Because it tells another human being, you matter enough for me to stay. And in that moment, it is very likely that that person feels as if they are the most important human on this planet. In a world built for distraction, presence is rebellion. And in a time where people are starving for attention, it's medicine. Maybe that's where our true strength lives. Not in fixing, but in holding space. Because when you're present with someone's pain, you remind them that they're not crazy for feeling it. You anchor them back to reality when their heart's been scattered across 1,000 silent screams. And that's not weakness. That's sacred work. You don't have to have the right words. You don't have to offer the perfect advice. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is just not run away. It takes courage to sit in someone else's storm without needing to stop the rain. It takes humility to be a witness instead of a savior. And it takes quiet strength to let your warmth speak louder than your ego. Because presence, the real kind, is steady. It doesn't need recognition. It just is. It's your spirit saying, I can't fix everything, but I refuse to let you go through it alone. And that right there, that's the beginning of healing. Now let's talk about the fire that doesn't burn here in part 4. There's a kind of fire that destroys and another that refines. One consumes everything in its path. The other purifies, strengthens, and transforms. The world has enough of the first one. What it needs now is the second. Because being light doesn't mean being fragile. It means learning how to burn without breaking. You've been through storms that should have ended you, disappointments that could have hardened you, losses that nearly dimmed your spark for good. And yet, here you are, still rising, still giving, still carrying the warmth in your chest when the world has given you every reason to turn cold. That's not an accident. That's evidence. Evidence of a light that knows what it's made of. And true light isn't soft because it's weak. It's soft because it's sure. It knows who it is. It knows what matters. And it refuses to let darkness decide the story. Maybe strength isn't about fighting harder. Maybe it's about staying human longer. Holding faith a little past the point of logic. Loving even when love feels like loss. You see, real fire doesn't need to prove itself. It simply burns. Clear, steady, unashamed. Not to consume, but to illuminate. So the next time your hope flickers, remember, it's okay to feel tired. It's okay to pause. But never mistake exhaustion for extinction. You were built to reignite. And every time you rise from your own ashes, the world remembers how. So here's your second challenge. This week, do one act that proves your light is still alive. It doesn't have to be loud, just true. Help, forgive, rest, create. Whatever keeps your fire burning clean, do that. Because the world doesn't need another explosion. It needs steady flames that remind us light can last. Let's now talk about when light looks like rest in part 5. If there's anything you take away from this part of this episode, it's this. Rest is a right. It's not a reward. It's not like going through your entire day thinking, now I deserve to rest. No, it's the opposite. Rest is a right. Even the sun sets. Even the stars disappear behind the clouds. And even the universe in all of its infinite brilliance moves in cycles. Creation, release, renewal. So why do we believe our light has to stay on all the time? Somewhere along the way, we equated stillness with failure. We started believing that if we weren't constantly shining, serving, producing, we were somehow falling behind. But light that never rests burns out. Rest isn't retreat. It's remembering. It's the moment your spirit comes home to itself. Because you can't pour warmth into an empty heart. And you can't bring peace when your soul is gasping for air. So maybe the most courageous thing you can do right now is stop, sit, and let silence reintroduce you to your own breath. That pause isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's the same wisdom that the earth uses when it sleeps beneath the snow, and the same rhythm the tide follows when it retreats to gather strength. Light that lasts doesn't demand. It trusts. It knows the difference between fading and resting. It knows that every dimming is temporary, a sacred reset, not an ending. And when you honor your need to rest, you teach the world something profound. that being light isn't about constant brilliance. It's about consistency, the kind that knows how to return. So when the weight gets heavy and you feel your glow flickering, don't fight it. Close your eyes. Let the flame lower. And when you're ready, you'll rise again, steadier, clearer, and more whole. All right, let's talk about illumination is contagious here in part 6. You may not notice it, but every time you soften, someone else breathes easier. Every time you forgive, someone watching starts to believe they could too. And every time you choose love over bitterness, you give someone permission to try again. That's the quiet miracle of light. It's never selfish. It was never meant to stay contained. You've probably seen it before. How one act of honesty can open up a room. How one person's calm can shift the whole tone of a conversation. And how one genuine, "I see you," can stop someone from slipping into invisibility. Light moves like that. It doesn't just shine on people. It ignites within them. And maybe that's how the world heals. Not through one grand revolution, but through a million small awakenings. One person remembering their worth. One friend offering a word of hope. One stranger choosing kindness, even when no one's watching. Because the energy you bring becomes the energy around you. And the energy around you becomes the energy we all live in. So, if you've been wondering how to make a difference in a world this fast, start here. Be who you needed when you were tired. Be the voice that says, "You still matter." Be the proof that softness can survive. You don't have to light up the sky. Just light up the space you stand in. Because every act of warmth sends out a signal. And somewhere, someone tired of the dark will see it and rise. Here's your third challenge. Today, let your light touch another. Send a message. Offer grace. Smile like it's a prayer. Be deliberate in your kindness, not random. Because illumination, let me say that again because I said that kind of fast. Because illumination, once chosen, spreads by design. All right, let's talk about the light you leave behind here in part 7. The truth is, most of the light you share, you'll never see again. You won't know which parts or words kept someone going. You won't see the ripple of your kindness reaching shorelines you'll never walk. But that's the beauty of light. It doesn't need credit. It just travels. You've been told your power comes from what you can prove. You may never know the full reach of your light. You might never see the lives you've softened, the hearts you've steadied, and the hope you helped rekindle. Most of what your light touches won't echo back. But that's the thing about real illumination. It was never meant to be measured. It was meant to be given. Every time you show up with kindness, even when it costs you something, you're sending out a signal. Every time you love someone through their silence, you're reminding the universe what healing sounds like. And every time you stay soft in a hard world, you're proving that gentleness is still possible. Your light is not small. It's not lost. It's not forgotten. It moves through conversations you'll never hear. It mends moments you'll never witness. It becomes the warmth in a stranger's story, one they'll tell years from now, without even realizing it started with you. And maybe that's the point. Maybe we were never meant to track our impact, only to trust that love multiplies faster than fear ever could. So if you've been wondering whether what you give makes a difference, it does. Every beam counts. Every act echoes. And every time you choose light, the world gets just a little less heavy. Because in the end, your legacy won't be your achievements or titles. It'll be the glow you left behind. And here's something to remember. You can't fix the whole world, but you can help it remember what light feels like. And every small act of hope, every moment of compassion, every time you stay human, that's the light you leave behind. As we close the show, I want you to remember these words. When the world feels heavy, don't disappear. Don't let it harden you. And don't let it convince you that your tenderness is a mistake. Because the light in you was never meant to compete with the dark, only to remind it that it never wins for long. Be the flicker that stays when everything else fades. Be the voice that whispers, "We're still here." Be the warmth that tells another soul, "You are not forgotten." Your light doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. So when your heart feels heavy, let your gentleness be your protest. Let your laughter be your survival. And let your hope, trembling, imperfect, still trying, be your offering. Because somewhere out there, someone is standing in their own darkness, waiting for a sign that it's still possible to believe. And when your light reaches them, even if you never see it, you'll know this truth in your bones. You mattered. You stayed. And you shined. Not because it was easy, but because you remembered who you are. You are light. And even in the heaviest world, you still rise. As always, thanks so much for joining me on this journey, tough as it is. You know, there is a lot happening on our planet, and it will be someone like you that makes a difference and helps repair it. Thank you for joining me and hanging out. I appreciate you. I'll see you next week, Wednesday, on Challenge Accepted with Jonah C. Have a great week.